Donald Trump continues to show the American people that he just doesn't believe the rules apply to him. And that's exactly what we saw yet again when the Trump campaign walked into the Arlington National Cemetery to honor the 13 fallen soldiers from Afghanistan and decided to get into a little altercation with the cemetery staff. So let's go ahead and take a look at what actually happened, and then we will discuss Trump's long history of denigrating our service members. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Defense officials tell CBS News that Trump staffers got, quote, aggressive, both verbally and physically on Monday in a confrontation with an Arlington National Cemetery official. It happened after former President Trump and his aides arrived at the nation's largest military cemetery with a campaign photographer, even though the law prohibits any filming there for partisan, political, or fundraising purposes.
So the law actually prohibits photography, film, whatever it may be, at the cemetery if you're going to be using it for political or fundraising purposes. But Donald Trump and the Trump campaign decided that that law did not apply to them. Well, one of the Afghanistan families invited me here, so I can do whatever I want. And so the employee at the cemetery tried to step in and uphold the rule of law and got into an altercation with one of the Trump campaign staff. This should be absolutely disqualifying for anybody. You don't have the permission to go into the cemetery and use for your political gain footage of the tombstones or whatever it may be that you want to capture inside that cemetery. That is why this law exists, because there is over 400,000 soldiers laid to rest there, and therefore it would be impossible for you to get the consent of all of those families. The law exists for a reason, for a good reason, but Donald Trump doesn't think it applies to him. This is just more of the same. Not only is he convicted now of 34 felonies, but he had to go running to the Supreme Court to ask for immunity for other laws that he broke. What are you guys doing, MAGA? I thought you were supposed to be the military, the pro-military, pro-veteran party. And this is your leader? So what is the Trump campaign actually saying about it? Instead of taking accountability for their actions and apologizing to the cemetery staff, who, by the way, can't be identified because crazy Trump supporters would go threaten her or him, whoever it was. That is how deranged some of these MAGA supporters are. And let's not get things twisted. There was an actual incident report filed, and the Army has since come out and said, yes, this incident did happen. But what is Stephen Chung saying, who was a Trump campaign spokesperson? He's saying, the fact is that a private photographer was permitted on the premises, and for whatever reason, an unnamed individual, clearly suffering from a mental health episode, decided to physically block members of the President Trump's team during a very solemn ceremony. So no accountability, no understanding that maybe they did break a federal law. Instead, they disparage the person who was working at the cemetery trying to uphold the rule of law. This is supposed to be the potential next commander-in-chief, and you can show no fidelity at all to our legal system. He just doesn't believe this stuff applies to him. We've seen this from Trump ever since he came onto the political scene. Reporting from times before that made it quite clear that Trump thinks that, he's special. He doesn't have to adhere to our rules and our laws. And I think that should be disqualifying for anybody who is trying to become the next commander-in-chief. Not only are you desecrating the memories and the people who are laid to rest at the Arlington National Cemetery, but it shows a complete disrespect for the institutions of our great country. So why did Trump want to go into the cemetery in the first place? Well, propaganda, of course. Let's go ahead and take a look at the video that Trump posted after this incident occurred.
We lost 13 great people. What a horrible day it was. We didn't lose one person in 18 months. And then they took over. That disaster, the leaving of Afghanistan.
So all this was a political stunt so Donald Trump could disparage the Biden-Harris administration for the Afghanistan withdrawal. And yes, he was invited by some of those families who lost their loved ones in Afghanistan, but that does not make it okay for him to just ignore federal law because he was invited there by some of these families. That's just not how our laws work. Everybody else has to abide by these rules, these laws, but you come in and you trample all over them. I am just so fed up with Donald Trump disparaging our service members, talking crap about them. He's got such a long history of it. Let's go ahead and take a look at him talking crap about John McCain, who had the opportunity to be released from a prisoner of war camp, but who chose to stay there to be with his guys. I don't agree with John McCain on pretty much anything, but he showed what a hero he was in that moment. So let's go ahead and take a look at what Donald Trump had to say about him. I'm sure you guys probably remember this from, back 2015, whenever this took place?
I supported him. He lost. He let us down. But, he lost. So I never liked him as much after that, because I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you.
He's not a war hero because he was captured? Really, Donald? Really? I mean, how pathetic is this? This guy wants to be the next commander-in-chief. He wants to be the person who leads our military. And there are just too many examples to count of him disparaging our service members. This should be disqualifying. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Independent. We should all be able to agree that our commander-in-chief shouldn't spend his time disparaging the people who sign up to fight for this country, who risk life and limb to secure the freedoms that we are afforded in this country. I don't know how that's so controversial. So MAGA, what are you doing? Donald Trump also tried to downplay traumatic brain injuries while he was president. It just continued on and on and on. Let's go ahead and see what he had to say there.
You said repeatedly to Americans that after Iran retaliated for the Soleimani strike, no Americans were injured. We now know at least 11 U.S. servicemen were airlifted from Iraq. Can you explain the discrepancy?
No, I heard that they had headaches and a couple of other things, but I would say, and I can report, it is not very serious.
So you don't consider potential traumatic brain injury serious?
No, I don't consider them very serious injuries relative to other injuries that I've seen.
This is absolutely despicable stuff coming from who was at the time the sitting president. 11 people had to be airlifted out because of their traumatic brain injuries, and he's trying to say, no big deal, dude. It was just headaches. What is wrong with him? What is wrong with Trump? Can somebody please help me understand how it is this guy who is at the top of the Republican ticket, the supposedly pro-military, pro-veteran party? Is this how we're supposed to treat our military service members? Doesn't seem like it to me. And we all know the very famous suckers and losers comment. Let's go ahead and take a look at that really quick.
confirmed by multiple sources that the president has repeatedly called American service members who've been killed or captured losers and suckers, that the president has asked his staff to not include wounded veterans in military parades and events because he doesn't like to see people with injuries or amputations, and he thinks other Americans don't either. That when he canceled a World War I centennial visit to an American veteran cemetery in France, the president reportedly told advisors, "Why should I go to that cemetery? It's filled with losers." In a separate conversation in the same trip, the president said that the 1,800 U.S. Marines who lost their lives at Belleau Wood were suckers because they got killed at Belleau Wood fighting for their country. The White House today woke up to this news that the president has now reported and confirmed by multiple sources to have derided not only John McCain and his service as a prisoner of war, but also former President George H.W. Bush, calling him a loser for having been shot down in combat in World War II. The president and the White House contending with news today confirmed from multiple sources that on Memorial Day 2017, his first year in office, he stood at the grave of the son of John Kelly, who was killed in combat in Afghanistan at age 29. The president said to him at the graveside, quote, "I don't get it. What was in it for them?"
What was in it for them? Absolutely disgraceful. Donald Trump just does not understand what service to others is, how one could serve others in a selfless way. Donald Trump does not have the wiring in his brain to make those types of thoughts work. He is a malignant narcissist who only looks out for himself, who only does things to further his own goals, his ambitions, and he's the guy who wants to be the next president. Shouldn't our presidents be serving the American people? Donald Trump clearly does not have the capacity to do that. It's just not in him. He doesn't possess the right stuff. I just don't even think it is possible. It seems to me like Donald Trump grew up this way. Maybe somebody didn't hug him enough as a child. I don't know what it is. But this is deeply ingrained in Donald Trump's character. He does not understand service to others. He only looks out for himself. And we know that because he effectively dodged the draft multiple times to go fight for this country. Let's go ahead and take a look at that story.
And then when it comes to Trump's own military service, well, there isn't any. Trump got 4 deferments to avoid being drafted in the Vietnam War. One of them was for bone spurs in his feet. Back in 2018, the daughters of the now deceased Queens podiatrist who gave Trump that bone spurs diagnosis, they said that their father gave that diagnosis to Trump as a favor to Trump's father. Trump's father was the podiatrist's landlord. In exchange for that get out of the draft free card, the family of the podiatrist say the podiatrist got better treatment as one of Trump's father's tenants.
So he got better treatment because he was Fred Trump's tenant? Donald Trump was literally born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He was gifted tons and tons of money by his father. His father has bailed him out time and time again. And then he, pulls some strings to get out of his military service at a time where this country was drafting up military-aged men to go fight. And he did it in a dishonest way, it appears to me. MAGA, what are you guys doing? Donald Trump has no respect for our military. He has no respect for the people who serve in our military. He has no respect for any of our institutions that help provide a safe and stable environment for the American people. You guys used to be the pro-veteran, pro-military party. What happened? This is not your guy. Trump is a self-serving narcissist who only looks out for himself, and he will praise military members if he thinks it will further his own goals or his own ambitions. But if they are in any way burdensome to him or contradictory to his message, then he will throw them under the bus with not a second thought. And this is the guy that wants to be the next president of the United States. I think that is absolutely disqualifying. We should be electing leaders that respect our institutions, respect our military members, because they are the ones that lead our military members. So, I just don't know what to say. MAGA, what are you doing? This is not the right guy for our country. All of these things that we've looked at should be disqualifying for a presidential candidate. But for some reason, Donald Trump is this close to getting a second term. So, let's just make sure we're out there doing the work to make sure that this guy is not elected this November. So that's going to do it for me on this one, folks. If you got anything out of this video, if you could remember to smash that like button and hit subscribe, maybe share it with a friend or two, I'd very much appreciate that. If you think I got something wrong, or if you disagree with me about something, feel free to drop a comment below. And if you want to learn about Trump's connections to Project 2025, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. And I will see you guys on the next one.